Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa min ittaba'um bi ihsani ila yawmiddini, amma ba'd. To proceed, today's lesson, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we want to speak about a subject that one particular viewer, one brother, Al-Akh Amr, has requested on a number of different occasions. And it seems like the opportune moment, after speaking about al-jumlatul ismiyatu at some length, that we now return back to al-af'alu, or the verbs. And the subject that we want to address is what we call al-awzanul asharatu, or the 10 patterns of verbs we have in Arabic. Actually, there are more than 10, there are 15. But patterns 11 to 15 are quite rare, they're not very common. So that will be discussed at a later point, insha'Allah ta'ala. So to begin, therefore, we want to speak about al-awzanu al-asharatu. Al-awzanu al-asharatu refers to the patterns or the forms of the 10 verb types. So when we speak about al-awzan, we want to discuss 3 particular issues. The first is how the pattern is formed. The second is what that pattern means, what meaning does it convey or represent. And the third, we want to mention examples of that particular pattern. Now, patterns in Arabic are based upon the verb fa'ala, and that's the first pattern that we're going to mention. Fa'ala. Fa'ala, literally, it means he did something, right? So you say, for example, fa'ala kada, he did something. And what that you will find is that the 10 patterns are all derived from that first pattern, fa'ala. So there'll either be an additional letter or a harakatun and so on and so forth, but that will become evident. The first pattern, therefore, is a simple 3-letter root form. So we know that in Arabic, all words are derived upon groups of letters that form a root. For example, if we take the 3 letters, al-kafu, wat-ta'u, wal-ba'u. Al-kafu, wat-ta'u, wal-ba'u. In Arabic, if you find these 3 letters and a word is formed from them, then it will usually have something to do with writing. So we know, for example, that kitabun is a book, and a book is written. Maktabun is a desk, and a desk is used to writing on. Maktabatun is a library, and a library is a collection of books, and so on and so forth. Therefore, words are based upon a root system. The first form, fa'ala, what is that in essence? It is an expression of that general verbal meaning of the root. So it's an expression of the general verbal meaning of the root. Therefore, because all words relating or based upon these 3 letters are connected with the subject of writing, the general verbal form must therefore be kataba. So we would write kataba. What does kataba mean? It does not mean how many dictionaries define it, to write. So they use the infinitive. Actually, in Arabic, it means he wrote. So kataba comprises of a fi'lun kataba, and what we call a fa'ilun, a doer, which is mustatirun, which is hidden. Taqdiruhu, it's assumed to be huwa, he, which is a reason why its actual meaning is he wrote. Now, the point to note about the first form, which is not particularly difficult, most of us will be familiar with the first pattern fa'ala, is that this type of verb is usually transitive. What does that mean, transitive? In English, not a great deal. In Arabic, it means al-muta'addi. Al-muta'addi is from the verb ta'adda, which means he transgressed. And what we're saying is that the meaning of the verb transgresses or goes beyond the doer to the one whom it was done to, meaning the object, right? What does that mean? It means he wrote is kataba. Well, what did he write? We can say kataba kitaban. The reason why kataba is what we call al-muta'addi, transitive, is because the action that he performed, which is his writing, it became manifest upon something else, meaning it moved from beyond the doer, i.e. he, to the object where it became manifest, which is a book. Most verbs of the first pattern, fa'ala, the first form, will be al-muta'addi, such as kataba, kitaban, akala, lahman, he ate meat, shariba ma'an, and so on and so forth, he drank water. But there are others that are not al-muta'addi, not transitive, and they are what we call al-lazim, and they do not necessarily take an object. For example, jalasa, we can say jalasa al-waladu, which means the boy, he sat. Similarly, we can say nadima at-talibu. At-talibu. Nadima at-talibu. Nadima meaning he regretted. And so on and so forth. We're not going to mention too many examples because the point to note is that fa'ala, the first pattern, is usually al-muta'addi, but it can be a lazim where it doesn't take an object. And in meaning, what meaning does it convey? Well, it's a general expression of the root of that particular verb from which the letters are formed. Not particularly complicated, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and I'm sure that it's something that most of you are already familiar with, the first pattern. The next pattern, and as we said, they all refer back to, in one form or another, the first, is where we place a shadda upon the middle letter and it becomes fa'ala. Fa'ala, this form or this pattern, which is a second one, is one that we can see how it's formed. We placed a shadda upon the middle letter, but in relation to the meaning that it conveys, it's one of two types. Either it's conveying the meaning of causing an action to take place, so it's causative, or it is to intensify an action. It's for the purpose of emphasizing the action. So it's either causative or it's for emphasis. And we're going to mention examples of both of those two types. So in relation, therefore, to causing an action, if we say, for example, kharaja, we know that kharaja means he exited. So we can say kharaja min al-bayti, he exited from the house. if we render kharaja, which is the first form, into the second form, how will we do this? Well, we will place a shadda upon the medial or the middle letter, which is the second one, and it becomes kharaja, kharaja, which now means not that he exited, but he caused someone or something to exit. Now the point to note during the course of this particular lesson and discussions regarding meanings of verbs is that you will find that in certain instances there are multiple meanings, just like in the English language. So I'm not trying to give you a comprehensive list of definitions for each verb. No, that's not the purpose. The purpose is just to understand the different types of meanings that are conveyed by that particular pattern. So kharraja means he caused someone or something to exit, but it also means he graduated, and that's a very different meaning. Another example of causing something, one that you perhaps will be familiar with, is alima and allama. Alima means he knew, right? So you can say, for example, alimat at-talibatu, the female student knew whatever, right? Which is the first form. Allama has a very different meaning. Allama, as perhaps you're familiar with, means he taught. So alima means he knows, or he knew rather, because it's al-madi, and allama means he taught. So it's like alima, which he has knowledge of a particular matter, and allama is he taught that knowledge. So that knowledge was conveyed to another. And we, since we were children, have been reading in Surah Al-Baqarah the ayah in which Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. So the i'rab on very briefly is علَّمَ فعل ماضي مبني على الفتح فاعله مستتر تقديره هو, meaning he taught, referring to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Now what's interesting, who is the object? It is Adama. How do we know this? It's the maf'ulun bihi. The indicator for it being maf'ulun bihi is that it's mansubun. The indicator for it being mansubun is al-fathatu al-dhahiratu ala akhirihi. This therefore is the maf'ulun bihi, walakin, however, it's al-maf'ulu bihi al-awwalu, it's the first maf'ulun bihi. Why? Because allama can take more than one object. Allama Adama, so Allah Azza wa Jalla, he taught Adama alayhi salam. What did he teach him? Al-asma'a. Al-asma'a, as you're familiar with, is the plural of ismun. It means names. So that is the second maf'ulun bihi. This is interesting because kullaha, which is kulla plus ha, that's an idafa construct. The kulla here is mansubun because it is, as the grammarian said, tawkidun ma'nawiyyun. It is an affirmation of the meaning. Ha here is the mudafun ilayhi, it's majrurun fi mahalli jarrin. But the point to note here is the use of allama, which is a second form. That Allah Azza wa Jalla, he taught, so that knowledge moved. And that's what we said was one of the two meanings of the second pattern. The first being causative, and the second being an intense or emphasizing that meaning. This is causative. If we look at the second meaning, which is an intense form, then we can mention, for example, kasara which means he broke. Kasara is he broke, and that's the first form from fa'ala. If we place a shadda upon the sin and we say kasara, then it has the meaning of breaking into pieces. So kasara means he broke, and kasara is to break into pieces. Another example of this is the verb غلق. We can say, for example, غلق, which means he locked. غلق, he locked. If, however, we want to convey the meaning of locking something securely, then we can say غلق, with using the second form or pattern of fa'ala. So غلق now has a meaning of locking something securely. And what's interesting is we read غلق in Surah Yusuf. For Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned the incident regarding the wife of Al-Aziz, the wife of Aziz and Yusuf alayhi salam, that when she sought to seduce him and they were in a room together, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. He said وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. Note that here غَلَّقَ is the second pattern based upon fa'ala, which is an intense form of the first. The meaning therefore is, and she locked securely al-abwaba, all of the doors. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because we need the intense form of ghalaqa here to convey that meaning of the locking of the doors securely. Again, the second form or pattern, fa'ala, is not particularly complicated, but you must remember that it can convey two meanings. The first being one of it being causative, and the second being that it is an intense or emphasized meaning of the first form. The third form is or pattern is formed by introducing an alif after the first letter. So we say therefore fa'ala. So we've now moved from fa'ala to introducing an alif after the first letter, and the remainder stays the same, and we say fa'ala. That's how we form the third pattern. What does it therefore mean? The meaning that it conveys is that someone or something else is present when this action is performed, and they are the object of it. Right? So someone or something else is present and they're the recipient. They're the ones upon whom the action has become manifest, and that can be best illustrated by where, for example, if we say Salima, Salima Fulanun. Salima means he was safe. It's based upon the first pattern, Salima. Fulanun is a general term in Arabic that relates to a person. So any person, any indefinite person that we want to make reference to, we can refer to him as fulanun, so and so. If we therefore say Salima fulanun, it means so and so was safe. But that's the first pattern. We're talking about the third. But we mention this to illustrate the difference in meaning. Note that this is a lazim. This verb here is a lazim. It doesn't require an object. If, however, we form the third pattern based upon the first of salima, we would say salama, and we would have a very different meaning. Why? Because salima means he was safe. Salama means he made peace. But as I mentioned, the third pattern implies the presence of another person or object. So we have to say salama fulanun al-qawma. Salama fulanun al-qawma. What does that therefore mean? It means fulanun so-and-so salama made peace al-qawma with a group of people. Al-qawma means a group of people, and it's a maf'ulun bihi mansubun. The indicator for being mansubun is the al-fathatu al-dhahiratu ala akhirihi. Salama fulanun al-qawma. Note the difference between salima and salama. In addition, we could say, to give you another example, and as I mentioned, you will find many multiple instances where you can detect a difference between a verb, whether it's on the first or the third pattern in a meaning. So we can say, for example, jahila fulanun. Jahila. What does jahila mean? It means that he was ignorant. He was unaware. So we would say, therefore, jahila fulanun, that so-and-so was unaware. However, if we derive the third form or pattern from the first, we would say jahala. Jahala is very different in meaning to jahila. Well, they're connected clearly because the root is the same, but the meaning is different. Jahila means he was unaware or he was ignorant. Jahala implies that ignorance or poor behavior was made manifest upon another. So we would say, therefore, jahala fulanun jarahu. Jarahu. Jahala is therefore fi'lun madi. He behaved ignorantly. Fulanun so-and-so. So so-and-so behaved ignorantly. Jarahu too. Jarun means a neighbor. Jarahu means his neighbor. This is an idafa construct. Jara is a maf'ulun bihi. Who is the mudafun ilayhi, and it is fi mahalli jarrin mudafun ilayhi. So there's a second example of the usage of the third pattern. Not particularly complicated, but the point to note is that the third pattern must or does imply the presence of another person or object upon whom the action has become manifest. The third pattern. Our fourth pattern is similar to our first, but we place an alif with a hamza before it. So it becomes af'ala. So we move from fa'ala to af'ala. And that gives us a particular meaning. And it's similar to the second one in the sense that it is causative. So af'ala means he caused someone or something to do something. For example, We know that kharaja means he exited. Kharaja, it's based upon the first pattern, fa'ala. Our fourth pattern, in order to derive it from kharaja, we have an alif with a hamza and akh. The first letter takes a sukoon. The second or the middle and the third letter stay the same, and we have akhraja. So the difference in meaning therefore is kharaja means he exited. Akhraja is causative. So he caused someone or something to exit. For example, kharaja at-talibu min al-fasli. Kharaja at-talibu min al-fasli, which means the student exited from al-fasli, the classroom. Hasanan min al-fasli. So you can see there, kharaja means he exited. The fa'ilun is at-talibu, so the at-talibu is the one who exited. However, if we derive from the first pattern the fourth, the meaning changes, and the meaning is now he caused to exit. So who ordinarily would cause a talibu to exit from al-fasli? In most instances it would be a disgruntled teacher. So we could say therefore that akhraja al-muallimu طالبا من الفصل. أخرج المعلم الطالب من الفصل. What does it mean now? The teacher أخرج caused to exit or expelled. And that's an important point, because even though we're talking about causation, of course, if you're going to translate it, or if we're going to understand its actual usage in Arabic, we are going to apply the definition to that verb, what is commonly used amongst the people. And even in English, we wouldn't necessarily say that a teacher caused to exit the student. Actually would say the teacher expelled or removed the student from the class. Similarly in Arabic, that is how it's understood. The teacher expelled or removed at-taliba min al-fasli, from the classroom. So akhraja is the fi'lun madin, al-muallimu is al-fa'ilu, at-taliba is the student, maf'ulun bihi, min al-fasli is jarun wal majruri. And that's the meaning. And we hope, inshallah ta'ala, that illustrates the difference between the first and the fourth pattern. Of course, there are numerous other examples that we could mention, such as dakhala and adkhala. Dakhala means he entered. So it's the opposite of kharaja. Therefore, if we wanted a verb that conveys a meaning of causing someone or something to enter, then we would use the fourth pattern, adkhala. Similarly, if we wanted to say saluha, which means he or something was corrected, if we wanted to convey the meaning of correcting someone or something else, then we would say aslaha, and so on and so forth. The fourth pattern is very useful because it conveys the meaning of causing the first pattern to occur to someone or something. So it's very useful in that context, and in addition to that, it's very simple to understand. And we will find that adkhala and aslaha and akhraja and so on and so forth, arja'a, they will have a maf'ulun bihi, because they will, in the vast majority of instances, be al-muta'addi. The fifth pattern that we want to discuss in this lesson is slightly more complicated, and it is based upon the second pattern. So to form it, therefore, all that we need to do is add a ta'u, and the rest of it is the same as the second pattern. So we move from fa'ala to tafa'ala, from fa'ala to tafa'ala. Now, what's interesting about the fifth pattern, which some people find difficult in understanding, or the inherent difficulty, is that in English it's referred to as being reflexive. What that means is that the object and the subject, or the subject and the object, whichever way that you look at it, are the same. In Arabic, we always have a very clear distinction between the fa'ilun and the maf'ulun bihi. However, in meaning in Arabic, it's the same as I expressed in English, in that the subject and the object are in fact the same. And it's best illustrated by way of example. If we say, take the second form or pattern, and we'll use غيّر. غيّر means he changed or he altered. If we consider, therefore, that somebody is preparing a dish, some food, and there's a particular flavor or taste, and they're not happy with it and they want to change it, or they did change it by adding al-milh, salt to it, or sukr, or whatever, sugar, we would say, if we wanted to express that, غيّر طعمه. طعمه. حسنا. غيّر is a fi'lun madin. It means he altered or he changed. طعمه is from ta'amun. Ta'amun means taste or flavor. And here it's the maf'ulun bihi. It is the thing, غيّر, that the fi'lan waqa alayhi has fallen upon and has become manifest in. He changed ta'ama, taste, hu, it's. If we were therefore referring to a dish or a ta'am, food, we would say غيّر طعمه, he changed its taste. حسنا. Now, that is the second pattern. We're talking about the fifth. But just to emphasize the point, that غيّر here is the fi'lun. The fa'ilun, it's assumed to be huwa, تقديره هو. طعمه is a maf'ulun bihi, and hu is the mudafun ilayhi, because that's an idafa construct. He changed its taste. In order to illustrate what the differences between the second and the fifth pattern, we're going to use the ayah in Surah Muhammad, where Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned وَأَنْهَارٌ مِّن لَبَنٍ, and rivers of milk. So from amongst the many and multiple rewards for the believers in Al-Jannah is Anharun min labanin, the rivers of laban, milk. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned Lam yataghayyar ta'muhu. Hassan, what do we have here? Point to note, we don't want to get confused as to why I've mentioned this example, because I've used al-fi'l al-mudari', the present tense, and ghayyara is the al-madi, the past tense. So we don't want to confuse ourselves, but to illustrate the difference is that yataghayyar is al-mudari'. It's been negated by lam, which is harfu nafyin wa jazmin. So yataghayyaru ordinarily would mean he or it changes. Lam negates that, meaning he or it doesn't change. But what is it now? Who is al-fa'ilu here? Al-fa'ilu, remember, we recognize al-fa'ilu by it being marfu'un, by being marfu'un. What ismun is marfu'un here? Well, it is ta'amu. Here, ta'muhu, meaning its flavor or taste. Lam yataghayyar, it does not change. Therefore, ta'mu here is the fa'ilun. Ta'ma after ghayyara was a maf'ulun bihi. So what we're saying therefore is its taste, i.e. of this river, lam yataghayyar, it does not change. The taste does not change. Whereas in the first, which is based upon the second pattern, we are saying he changed its taste. So remember when we said that the way the fifth pattern is usually described, particularly in English, is that the subject and the object are actually the same. And in Arabic they're the same in meaning, even though the fa'ilun can only be one. So we therefore say that its taste, lam yataghayyar, does not change. So ta'amuhu is the fa'ilun, but in meaning it's also the thing that hasn't or isn't being changed. Therefore in meaning it is the object too. And that is a difference between the second and the fifth form. To give you another example, we'll take another commonly used fi'lun, which is dhakara. And this will also illustrate the many different meanings. Dhakara means he, dhakara mentioned. Right? That's where dhikrun is from. Dhakara means he mentioned. It's also used to mean he remembered. Hasanan, that's the first form. If we look at the second form, then we would say, let me rewrite, right? We would say dhakara, dhakara. Note the difference between dhakara, which means he mentioned or he remembered, and dhakara. If you remember, dhakara, which is based upon the second pattern, its meaning is causative. So he caused now to remember. So you could say, for example, dhakarahu sadiquhu. Sadiquhu. Dhakarahu sadiqahu. Which means his friend, so sadiqu is the fa'ilun, his friend, dhakarahu reminded him, dhakarahu. But that's the second form. We're talking about the fifth. The fifth form or pattern of dhakkara will therefore be tadhakkara. Tadhakkara. Tadhakkara means he remembered. So dhakkara is he reminded, dhakkara is he mentioned, and tadhakkara is he remembered. So it doesn't require an object, and all that we need to say is tadhakkara al-waladu. Tadhakkara al-waladu, meaning the boy, tadhakkara, he remembered. And then you could say he remembered something in particular. But the point to note is how we formed tadhakkara from dhakkara, and how now tadhakkara, he remembered, and al-waladu is a fa'ilun, he's the doer, but he's now also the object too, in meaning, because he's the one who's being remembered, or he's the one who's doing the action. Tadhakkara al-waladu, the boy remembered. So those are the first 5 patterns that we wanted to mention, and we're going to conclude at that point, because one of the reasons why I dislike mentioning longer lists, even though this isn't particularly excessive, but mentioning long lists of points without giving many examples, is because after a few examples it can become quite difficult to absorb and to remember. And even these 10 patterns, the more you read Arabic and the more you study grammar, the more relevant they will be. For the beginner, it can seem quite overwhelming if you mention all the patterns together. But if you break it down, inshallah ta'ala, and if you do it in pieces, such as the first 5 and then the next, then bidhnillahi ta'ala it will become easier and more relevant to you, particularly as you continue in your journey seeking knowledge of this language. Wallahu a'lam, and we'll conclude on that point. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.